Rabbi Deren, it's been a pleasure having you with us for Shabbos. We've been february since.
It's been a pleasure being here for Shabbos,
So,
and I'm certainly glad we came.
usually when we're on a camera, I'm here and you're in Connecticut. But Baruch Hashem, we've been february since Thursday night together, almost nonstop, a couple hours here and there to sleep. Before you head out to your continued february of the week ahead, a couple of questions, if you may. And the idea here is that there may be some Shluchim who will watch this conversation and be inspired by it in some way or another. That's the kavanah. So question number one is, I'm clearly many years your junior. And when we first spoke about doing some coaching work together, what was it that led you to wanting to do this?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When the idea first came up of doing some coaching work with you, I didn't even really seriously consider it. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, well, that sounds like very nice, and it did take a couple of this straight up for my son Yossi. I'm telling you, give him a call. So finally, I figured, okay, I'll give him a call. And it became like it didn't take a long time after that first telephone call, or it didn't take more than one telephone call to realize that not only was this a good idea, but that I desperately needed to do exactly this. And without getting into, details of any sort of what particular challenges I was dealing with at the time. But they were the kind of challenges that, like, to me, certainly, and I think for so many others, that their chief effect was paralyzation. It's like, man, I can't do this, and therefore let me go find something else to do, which of course is far less necessary, far less productive, and far less rewarding at any level. Now, so that was right after conversation one. I realized that the first thing Shmuly Rothman can do for me and will be able to do for me is to focus me onto those areas that I can do something about and do them well. The Rebbe, of course, always talked about, often, or so strongly talked about Aser L'Charav and the importance of having a Rav. And this is not that kind of relationship. If anything, I would probably categorize it in the category of Knei L'Chaver. I'm not looking for inspiration here. I'm looking for technical techniques to deal with whatever life throws at me, and particularly in my life as a Shliach, and in the challenges that Shliachs inevitably have, and to be able to deal with them effectively. I'll be perfectly honest, Shmuly, and I probably told this to you, but I'll say it publicly. I don't think you told me one thing that I didn't know. You didn't teach me anything in terms of new ideas or concepts or approaches. Everything that you taught me or that you told me, I've heard before, I've either read before, heard before, and probably should have known in a more conscious way before. But like everything else, there's what you know and there's what you put into practice at any given point in time. And I guess that, yes, you are my junior in years, and yeah, in other ways as well, of course. But you have one thing that I don't have, and that is objectivity. That when it comes to all of the issues that I'm facing, the one thing that I can't do is face them well. Of course, I could, but what is most difficult is to face them objectively and not allow everything else that's going on at any given point in time color the decision needs to be made at that given point in time. So now that sounds a fairly modest achievement. It isn't. It's life-changing. It is truly life-changing, because in the last, it's now been over a year, I look back at it and see how differently I've dealt with so many of the things that we've had to deal with. And, I mean, I'm not talking about earth-shattering, challenges and difficulties, which when you say Yisrael Deren, many people think, I'm talking about the run-of-the-mill speed bumps or whatever, or the challenge that every Shliach has when it comes to fundraising, or most of them have when it comes to fundraising, which is it's not something we like to do. I mean, but to be able to put it into perspective that it is as important as putting on film with a balabas. And in fact, if you think about it, it's far more important if you're going to be, measure mitzvahs in terms of, but in terms of what it, and that if you approach it in exactly the same way you approach putting on film with somebody, or taras hamishpacha, or kashrus, or any other kind of thing with which you want to be makar of somebody, where you think about it from his or her perspective and what it is that they need, and what it is that this mitzvah and this piece of Torah is going to give them, and how to present it in a way that they'll appreciate it. And that same thing is true about Mivtza Tzedakah. It's so that's.
And was that something new as far as how to view it in a way that brings you to do it more often, and with
the general concept? Of course, no, it's not new. Everybody knows. I mean, I'm saying that there's 10 mitzvah, and one of them is tzedakah. I mean, you should. I mean, that's basic until it comes to putting it into practice. Because when it comes to putting it into practice, that is the one mitzvah where you are also involved, or very easily become involved in it, and the general disappointment that one gets when one gets a no about putting on tefillin, or a no about being the keystone in the capital campaign, that's like really a real disappointment. Or conversely, the yes when somebody puts on tefillin, and the yes when somebody says yes, okay, I will, I'll be the major gift in this campaign. So they're, tefillin is, or Limit Torah or Shabbos. I mean, these are great, incredible mitzvahs. And yeah, of course you're happy when a Balabas says that. Well, when he says, here's the $1 million, and you're flying through the roof, what's the Lebushet? And the answer, of course, is because this involves you. So you need to be able to do it correctly and appropriately, is to view it objectively. It's not about you. At the very most, it's about your meisid. Okay, it's about, and it's not your most meisid, by the way. It happens to be the Rebbe's. And so, in the final analysis, he's running that show. And so, Al Rebbe says that I'll say the kol hakayis eved kilo eved aved zara. And the way Al Rebbe explains it is because you were to think that we realize that it's not him who hit you, but it's because you deserve getting the patch, so you wouldn't be upset at him. Well, let's turn around the other way. If you were to realize it was the Rebbe that arranged for this gift to go into his meisid, it had nothing to do with you. And what are you jumping up and down for? As if, hello? No, I don't want to take anybody's have as much I know as we could have, but my point, the need for objectivity is a necessary, and it's also very difficult to achieve when you're doing it on your own, when you have somebody standing next to you that you actually see standing next to you, as opposed to the Rebbe who's actually standing next to you, the Rebbe is standing next to you, but this boss of a dumb here, okay, who happens to be your coach, and who says, no, that's not the way you want to make that ask, or make that call, or deal with that challenge. But think about it for a second. First of all, you're acting as an agent of the Rebbe. Your alignment that the Hebster is running the world. Approach it from that perspective, and now do what you have to do. That is life-changing when you actually start acting on it. Now, I don't say that that's such a big deal, because meanwhile, at the end of the day, you're not acting on it. You have your coach next to you doing the action, okay? And what would it be like a year later after he's gone and you're on your own? I don't know. Have I changed? Have I been transformed in a true pneumistic way?
Was that the goal?
But it wasn't. No, the goal was to get the Mesid properly organized, and to get the Shlichus properly, continue to get it better and more well organized.
What was a positive surprise that, looking back at reflecting on a year working together? I think we took a little break for a couple of months. It was the right thing to do, to take a little pause, and got back on a couple of months ago. What was a positive surprise that you weren't necessarily looking for in the coaching relationship, that looking back at, you're able to appreciate?
To unbuckle your seatbelt on the airplane and reach up to the luggage compartment, pull out your tefillin, and start walking down the aisle, asking people if they're Jewish, and put on tefillin. For me, at least, still, it's a very big, it's a challenge. Now, I used to say, well, but fundraising is also a big challenge, and you do it anyways. Why? Because it has to be done. Well, tefillin is at least as important as quote fundraising. Now the problem is different. No, fundraising isn't that difficult. Actually, sometimes if you do it right, it's enjoyable. So we may need to start working on mitzvah tefillin a little bit better, and make sure to get that and it's associated. But in terms of the surprise, to put it in one sentence, that raising money could be enjoyable. Actually be enjoyable.
Right.
Even because realizing that when you get a no, A, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be it, will remain a no. B, so the next one will be a yes. And C, so it was a no. You got exactly what the Abishur wanted you to get.
So the good
You
news
didn't
is,
lose anything.
the good news is I got to see you in action this afternoon, making phone calls and working a campaign. So I know that this is not a theoretical rah-rah that is nice, fun to talk about, but doesn't have a mamish. If there was a shliach out there who is considering coaching and he's not sure if it's the right thing for him, what would your message be?
I would say do it for 3 years and then decide if it's a good thing or not.
You remind me, I once heard B'Shem Rabbi J.J. Hecht that you have to work on your marriage every day for the first 50 years.
And then
after that, every other day.
Yeah, exactly. I would say it's about as important as that. The idea of Knei L'Chachaver is not to get somebody who you can talk to and with, on the telephone every two or 3 days and hear what the latest gossipers or whatever. I don't want to get worse than gossip, but in my understanding is that in corporations, in big corporations, the CEOs at that level and certainly lower, they all have coaches, or most of them, or certainly many of them. You don't hear a lot about it because they don't advertise it, but is it there? I mean, it's so that for somebody to say, I don't need it, there may be shluchim that don't need it. Maybe, okay, but the very fact that he's wondering if he does need it, if you're wondering whether you should get, then you should get, okay, if you're at the level of wondering. And then there are those that aren't, I definitely don't need it. Among those, so there are some that may talk, I mean, there are people that Adam Yasha that has his life really straight and so on. Power to you. Most people.
And how do you personally respond to the question of how are you okay working with somebody who could be your grandson?
I'm actually working with my grandson too. Why not?
On a spiritual level, we're let's see, if your mother was Makar of my mother, that means we're closely related.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, but then that's more like brothers. But well, or uncle. I like have zero problem with that. Like it's like it. I'm gonna get on a plane and I see the pilot. Okay, is 40 years younger than me. What do I think?
Thank God.
Exactly. You go, now I don't want a pilot my age.
So one last question.
You see, you don't need a coach because something is the matter with you, or that because you have some deficiency, and that you need a coach because you're a human being who is Karav Eitzel Atzmai. Adam is Karav Eitzel Atzmai. And when you need to make decisions for which objectivity is very important, why not have somebody help you? I mean, it's like, I guess maybe it's the word coach that is a little bit of a, because the coach.
How do you say that in Yiddish, by the way?
What, a coach?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't even know if there's such a concept.
In Hebrew, the word coach is coucher. So whenever somebody says to me, coucher Shluchim, I picture that I'm a couch and they're all sitting on me.
I feel like I'm that.
You're the love seat.
That's called the head of state.
You're the love seat.
It's coach, mentor. It's reality check is really what we're talking about. Okay, somebody to give you an ongoing reality check. Which is necessary in a high stress position, which Shlichus is a high stress position. There are so many demands on your time, so many demands on your being, and to be able to maintain the kind of calm-headedness, cool-headedness, level-headedness that would allow you to regularly make proper decisions is superhuman. And I think that's that's why it may be maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. I mean, we needed coaches 50 years ago. No such coach was something. I think that the world today is a much more stressful world than it is 50 years ago. I think the demands on people in a position like Shliach are far greater, and they come from so many different directions. A Shliach 50 years ago lived in even when he was engaged, mamish in tachten, shebetachten, but was able to maintain, or some of them at least, the legends, the Shluchim, the legend of Shmuly, and others. I mean, they're not Yechidim. That they were able to maintain the cocoon of Torah, of Yiddishkeit, of Chassidus, even as they engaged. They really didn't. They didn't have to leave the cocoon. They stayed in it. It went with them wherever they went, and they felt that with them. Now, today, is it possible to live that way? You have to say it is possible, but if you can ask me to identify those that are actually able to produce it, I don't know. And I'm not embarrassed to say that I can't do it. And I suspect that it would be very difficult to find those that can.
Mm.
So now, and why is it? Is it Yuridas Haderis, or is it the fact that the world that we're in today is, is just much different than the world of 50 years ago? It's really a relevant question. This is the world that we're in, and we are the people who we are, and I think it's necessary.
You're a Kohen.
Yes, so I bench all Shluchim.
Right. So my question to you is not a question. I'm asking you that as a Shliach who's been on Shluchis for 4 decades, where were we holding? Close to 5 decades. And what is your, I don't want to say the word message because that sounds cheesy, but what's your message to Shluchim who might be hearing this and would like to hear a Vara Mefarat from Rabbi Yisrael Deren?
I would say that Shluchim today, on the one hand, yes, it's I'm not good. It's are in a world that is very different than the world of 50 years ago, and by the same token, are people that are giants in comparison to those of 50 years ago, because Im Kol Zeh v'Acher Kol Zeh, and three decades after Gimel Tammuz, and still with they come out to Shlichus with Mesiras Nefesh, Pale Mamish, that will be successful in ways that we were never able to be successful. I was asked once in an interview about a period of Shlichus that when we were in Amherst, at UMass in Amherst, and did I feel that my time there was successful? And I said, no. And he said, well, why not? And I said, because Mashiach didn't come. So we still have to bring Mashiach. Until we do, we haven't been successful. Sort of off the directed topic of quote coaching, but I think there's another important nakuda that needs to be addressed, which is, darf einem der Welt in a certain respect, there are no more continents left, there are no more countries left, there are no more states left, there are no more cities left. Everywhere is Shenagim. So what's Shlichus today? But Eigenum developed, and we took it horizontally, we took all of it. Now we have to start working vertically. For every 100 Yidden, there needs to be a Shliach. Because a Shliach really cannot be Makarev more than 100 people at a time. I'm sure there are not enough hours in the day to be pushing. When I talk about Makarev somebody, I don't mean to invite him to a Seder once a year and to Rosh Hashanah and Kippur and to get 4 flyers. I'm talking about to Makarev somebody that they should push it, begin to put on tefillin and keep Shabbos and eat kosher and to become from Yid, which is really the purpose. Who? Every Yid. How many times did we hear the Rebbe say, Bismillah der Grecht zu jeder Yid?
How many Yidden are known in your region is called what? North,
Western, Connecticut and Western Massachusetts.
How many known Yidden are?
I think we have 45,000. How many do we have a direct contact with?
No, so 45,000 Yidden, and a shliach for each 100.
Yeah. What do you mean 4,500 Yidden?
4,500 Shluchim.
And the truth is, how will they be able to support themselves? How will the be supported? What kind of question is
that? The head shliach will take care of it.
Exactly. The head shliach is there, by the way, it happens to be the Rebbe. And so there's no question. That's only talking about not going to college, but going to shliach is not the Rebbe shliach. Come on, hold on.
When are you releasing your plan?
I'm actually working on it. Okay.
Rabbi, thank you for taking time for this conversation.
Thank you for giving me.
And may our combined efforts together continue to be
produce beautiful results.
Particularly a happy and energetic Rabbi Deren.